Hi Year 10 and welcome to your second lesson this week. Today we're going to look at the ways in which our body prevents us from getting ill, the way that it stops pathogens getting in, and then how it attacks and defeats those pathogens when they do get inside. This is what we call our immune system or immunity, and that's what we're going to look at today. It follows on from our last lesson where we looked at what causes diseases and what makes us ill. So if you haven't watched that, I would suggest you go back and watch that video. Make sure you complete that task before having a look at this one. The first thing to think about today is the ways in which our body stops pathogens from getting in the first place and stops us from getting ill. And the main one is this that surrounds all of us. It's our skin. Our skin forms a physical barrier which prevents pathogens from getting within inside us. And this is why when we cut ourselves or get grazes, they can get infected easily. It's a hole in that physical barrier in which pathogens can get inside, and that's what causes an infection. And our body tries to prevent this. It's what a scab is. It's that hole sealing up. This is done by something called platelets, which are in your blood, and that's what causes them to clot, and it's what causes scabs to form. And this is an effective way of stopping pathogens getting inside. But there are, of course, some other ways in which pathogens can get within us. When we eat food, if it's infected with bacteria, it can make its way into us. And this is one of the reasons we've got stomach acid. It breaks down our food, but it also breaks down that bacteria and stops us from getting ill. Or at least it should. It doesn't always work, and that's why we're sick. It's our body trying to get rid of that bacteria before it makes us too ill when we've got food poisoning. Our eyes are another source of potential infection. Eyes get infected very easily, but tears have special enzymes in it that stop them getting infected. And it's why we cry when we get things in our eyes. It should get rid of those pathogens, flush them out and take them away and try to prevent infection. But of course, our eyes, our nose, our mouth, they are all potential ways for pathogens to get within our body and to escape our body, because they are breaks in that physical barrier, breaks in our skin, in which pathogens can get in, get to our lungs, get to the rest of our body. And this is why wearing one of these at the moment is so important. It prevents pathogens getting into a couple of those breaks in your physical barrier. It stops you inhaling pathogens, inhaling coronavirus, but it also prevents us from giving out those pathogens. If you've got COVID, this forms a physical barrier from, or at least somewhat of a physical barrier from you spreading it around easily. It is just an extra layer of protection, and it's why it's very important to wear one. All of these defense mechanisms, whether that's your skin, whether it's tears, whether it's your stomach acid, they're all about trying to stop an infection happening. But once those pathogens get within your body, there are a few things that we are able to do, our body's able to do, to fight pathogens and stop them from making us too ill. We are going to look at the 3 ways in which our body protects us from pathogens today. These are 3 things that our body does once those pathogens get within our body. And the key thing to know is that all of these come from something called our white blood cells. White blood cells are what provides immunity and provides us safety from infection. And you might have seen in hospital dramas and that kind of thing on TV that very, very ill people often have a low white blood cell count. And that means that their natural immune system isn't working properly. They're not able to do these things that we're going to talk about today. And that's what allows an infection to spread through the body very, very quickly. So the first thing that happens when a pathogen gets inside your body are these things called phagocytes will engulf these pathogens, and they find the pathogen, whether that's a bacteria, a virus, any of those other things we looked at last week, and these are special cells that wrap themselves around that pathogen and they engulf it and they destroy it. And this is happening all the time. These phagocytes are paroling your body, looking for pathogens and attacking them and engulfing them, and this keeps that infection down. It keeps the number of pathogens within your body down, but on its own it's not enough, because they're patrolling, they're looking for, but they're not going to find absolutely every one of those pathogens, and that's why an infection can get greater and you can get iller. Second thing your body does is it produces antibodies, and to understand how these work we need to take a little bit of a closer look at a pathogen. So if we look at a virus, but this is the same for absolutely every pathogen, they have got these things surrounding the outside called antigens, and these are unique to every single pathogen you encounter, and it's these antigens that are responsible for making you ill. So they are what causes illness, and they are what makes every pathogen unique. and your body produces something called antibodies that lock onto these antigens. And once they do that, it stops them from making you ill. And as an added benefit, once it locks onto these antigens, it will drag them to the phagocytes, which can then engulf and destroy them in the way that we've already looked at. So antibodies have these two real uses. They lock onto the antigens, stop making that pathogen effective in making you feel ill, but then they drag it and destroy it via phagocytes. These antibodies, once you've been exposed to something once, your body stores them in something called memory cells. And this means that should that infection return, should you encounter that pathogen again, you'll have the antibodies ready and they will lock onto that pathogen, onto those antigens straight away, and it will be destroyed very quickly. Doesn't mean you won't get the illness again, but you shouldn't see symptoms. And it's why we think that you can only get COVID once. You get it once, you've then got the antibodies, and it shouldn't return. And it is definitely why we will only get chickenpox once. There are a few exceptions, but most of you out there will have had chickenpox once and only once, because you've got the antibodies, which means should you be exposed to it again, your body's able to fight it nice and effectively. Good, so that was a quick overview of the human immune system and how it fights and destroys pathogens when they enter your body, and how our skin and other things prevent those pathogens from getting in the first place. So now use all this information that we've gone through today to have a go at answering those questions on the Google form, and then you will be done with science for this week and 1 week closer to being back in the classroom together, which is mega exciting for us all. Okay, have a good weekend. Bye-bye.